The year was 2003, and Nintendo was floundering. It was the last time I was excited about a new Mario Kart. While some may have loved Double Dash, many others found it unremarkable, and in any case, it wasn't enough to save the GameCube from its downward spiral. The GameCube had wonderful games, but it is hard to say that it reached its potential. 11 years have passed, and Nintendo finds itself in the same position. The Wii U faces similar foes, and a similar fate. The 8th Mario Kart, in the 8th generation of video game consoles. Is it too doomed to mediocrity? I don't think so.
Start your engines! Let's go!
That intro was a little dramatic. Alright, so let's start with what's staring you in the face. No, not Luigi, but the graphics. Mario Kart 8, bar none, has the best visuals of any game on the Wii U so far. The console was always said to be more powerful than the 360 and PS3, and surprisingly this is the first game that really showcases that power. YouTube doesn't even do it justice. Bowser's reptilian skin shines out of the water, tires pick up the grime from the ground they're running on, mustaches walk freely in the open breeze. Little visual flares like that are all over the place, and it helps give Mario Kart 8 an edge in something that you don't really think about when you think of cartoony racing games: atmosphere. This feels like a fully realized world, and it's so detailed you can almost smell the burning rubber. But all that would go to waste if the gameplay didn't live up to the same standard. I think I have something of a proficient perspective on this, seeing as I've spent the past few weeks playing and reviewing every previous game in the franchise. So let's get something straight. Anyone who tells you that Mario Kart 8 is just more of the same doesn't really know what they're talking about. Sure, it's still a cast of Mario's friends and enemies gallivanting around in go-karts and bikes and ATVs, and yeah, you get the picture. But Mario Kart 8 makes some important under-the-hood changes that make it feel very unique from what's come before. The most famous among these are the new anti-gravity sections. Just about every track in the game, old and new, has sections where your wheels go horizontal and you go up and down and all around. While it's not quite the game changer that diving and flying were in Mario Kart 7, they are a lot of fun, and they do add more variety to the courses. I do kind of wish there was an option to keep the camera upright so you could really feel the effects, but, you know, motion sickness and all that. Speaking of which, this game is significantly faster than its predecessor. And it's not just in the speed of your kart. Gameplay in general is a lot snappier, from shells, to hairpin turns, to even Lakitu himself. Up till now, falling off the track was a heartbreaking ordeal, and afforded you enough time to throw your controller across the room, take a breath, pick it up, make a sandwich, visit the bathroom. Lakitu ain't working hourly anymore, you know what I'm saying? He whacks you back onto the track and sends you on your way so fast, an expletive just barely has time to escape your mouth. Changes like this help make Mario Kart 8 a much faster experience than it was. It's more challenging and exciting, and it puts skilled play on a higher pedestal. Veteran players will also appreciate a change to the way that the difficulty system works. Mario Kart's always had 3 kart classes measured by the power of the vehicles. I know so much about cars, can you tell? I was thrilled to discover that in this game, earning cups in 150cc gave me the same rewards in the lower difficulties. I generally play exclusively at 150, and for the first time I won't have to grind through the boredom of 50cc just for the sake of completion. Now, I said at the end of the retrospective that this game looked like it was going to continue down the balanced path its predecessor began, and for the most part, it definitely does. Red shells seem less frequent, but green ones are a lot more potent and plentiful. That's a good thing for players, but the CPU seems a little too good with them sometimes. But we'll get to that later. Ever since 64 introduced the ability to drag an item behind you, you've been able to pick up another to hold in reserve at the same time. That's no longer the case. And I approve! One item at a time means you'll need to be a little more strategic. But to balance this, the situations wherein you lose items without using them are nearly non-existent. Fall off the track? Keep your item. Get exploded? Keep your item. Not even the mighty blue shell can wrest your item from its slot. The only thing that can still obliterate them is lightning, which has been balanced over the past few games as sort of an equalizer. Again, I like this change. Losing an item was frustrating, but it's much less so when you remember that everyone else has just lost theirs too. And keeping the mechanic in just that one case still keeps players from being able to hoard powerful items until the last lap. In Mario Kart 7, the blue shell lost its wings. It once again skimmed along the track, taking out more than just first place. It's been nerfed even more for Mario Kart 8. It's more rare, it doesn't take away your item, and it doesn't hit much harder than any other shell. In fact, in 40 plus hours of playing, it's only directly robbed me of victory a single time, and it's been more than useful enough to make up for it. The new Super Horn item sends out shockwaves around your vehicle, sending other racers flying and, more importantly, destroying any shells that might be nearby, regardless of color. Nintendo's made a pretty big deal about this, but I found that most of the difference is still in just how rightly nerfed the blue shell has become. It's pretty rare that you actually have a Super Horn when it comes flying. If you did watch that retrospective series, you might have already noticed something odd about this footage. I'm not always playing as Toad? Yes! For the first time in nearly 20 years, I'm stepping outside that comfort zone. I started out using him exclusively, but I eventually got tired of simply not having the power to catch up to heavier characters on straightaways. Because I've stuck with Toad for so long, I can't tell you exactly when this happened, but the character system is full of checks and balances like that. Vehicle customization returns from Mario Kart 7, and what's really impressive is just how viable such a variety of vehicles feel. Heavy characters with high top speeds are dominating the time trials. But if you start getting owned too hard on a real race, and this is Mario Kart, so you will get owned, your lousy acceleration means you'll be overtaken by everyone. It's fun to try out different loadouts, and it's great when you find something that suits your playstyle. Lennon and I raced one-on-one in very different builds, and we were still evenly matched when we both knew the track. As the standard goes, the new Mario Kart features 32 tracks, 16 new and 16 retro. Well, retro this time around should probably be in quotation marks. Sure, past games of the series upgraded the old tracks, but not like this. Here, it's more akin to the way that Team Fortress 2 reimagined Team Fortress Classic's old maps. Especially on the older courses, the graphical style can be totally different, and they're all rebalanced and reworked to fit Mario Kart 8. Especially on the Double Dash courses that I was less familiar with, it was easy to forget that I was even playing a retro course. If I had to cite a downside, I guess the degree of differences the courses like Tick-Tock Clock and Royal Raceway have kinda knocks down the nostalgic fun of seeing the courses again, but when it's this well done, you can't complain. And the 16 new courses live up to that same standard, and feature some of the best tracks the series has seen to date. The only thing that is kind of a letdown may be the new Rainbow Road. Compared to Mario Kart Wii's stunt course and 7's innovative space theme track, this rendition of the series staple is a bit bland. I mean, it's not a bad track, but it doesn't quite live up to Rainbow Road. And yeah, unfortunately, I also have something to say about the retro Rainbow Road. It's the N64 version, which I was really excited to play, but you now only race one lap instead of 3. I understand that it was an enormous track originally, and it makes sense why they did it. I just wish there was an option to do the full epic course anyway. And just for the sake of igniting a debate or two in the comments, I'd say my favorite new tracks right now are Cloud Top Cruise, Dolphin Shoals, and Electrodome. And my least favorite? I'm not a big fan of Bone Dry Dunes, and don't kill me for this, but I'm getting a little bit sick of Mount Wario, though that may be mostly because it gets selected online every time it comes up. Nonetheless, I'd say there's nary a mediocre track in the bunch. Even the ones that are a little less memorable are still a lot of fun, and everything about them, from variety to balance to design to music, is absolutely superb. But when it comes to, let's say, the extracurriculars, there are some things that make Mario Kart 8 seem a little rough around the edges. Seriously, look at that. How did they leave that in? Mario Kart TV is a brand new feature that lets you customize highlight reels and share them on YouTube. It's sadly pretty limited in some fairly important ways. You can't freely move the camera or even change angles. While you can slow down the footage to look at epic moments, you can't actually upload the video like that, and when you share it, it's all limited to 60 seconds. It's a cool feature that I hope more games have, but here, its implementation is a little bit half-baked. Also, I don't understand why highlight reel is the default option at the end of a race. 20 years of muscle memory telling me to hammer the A button to get to the next course was a real challenge to overcome. There's also no option to play local multiplayer with one person on the gamepad and others on the television. No matter what, you're stuck with split screen. Considering this is something that Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed was able to pull off around the Wii U's launch, it really seems like a waste. Once again, each race features 12 competitors instead of 8, and once again, it seems to be just a little too much. Oh, it's never the chaotic nightmare of Mario Kart Wii, and especially if you can stay ahead of the pack, it's perfectly manageable. But once you drop down to about 3rd place, you're just in this war zone of more powerful items. The problem is even further exacerbated online, where racing a group of similarly skilled players can be way too hectic for my tastes. I think the CPU has had its chances of getting certain items capped, but online I was constantly pursued by stars and bullet bills. Still, I do seem to be the only person I've talked to who has a real issue with the 12 position races, so call it a pet peeve. It'd still be nice if you could change it. I'm surprised nobody has said anything, but I went through my entire Mario Kart retrospective without mentioning Battle Mode a single time. And that's because Battle Mode was always the kind of thing I'd play a time or two and then forget about. The focus for me was always on the racing. Battle Mode in Mario Kart 8 is another example of a cut corner. You actually play on a very limited selection of the Grand Prix tracks, most of which are so expansive, the mode's even more boring than usual for me. I'm not gonna dock it for this because I wouldn't have cared much anyway, but it's still worth pointing out. No, my biggest complaint when it comes to Mario Kart 8 would have to come down to the roster. Especially when everyone who is here is so well animated, it's just uninspired. The most glaring problem is the inclusion of all 7 Koopalings. The director of the game said in an interview that splitting them up and only including a few of them was, quote, not an option. That was the wrong choice. It knocked out long-standing racers like Diddy Kong and Dry Bones from appearing, and it really limits the variety of the cast. Because of this, unlocking characters never brought the aura of excitement that it should. There's been a lot of talk about expanding Mario Kart's roster to include other Nintendo properties, and honestly I'd love to see that. But even if you want to keep it within Mario's cast of characters, there's more depth than this. Why are there so many Koopalings and baby characters and Pink Gold Peach, when we could have characters like Wart or Fawful added to the cast? In these areas, Mario Kart 8 feels rushed. And you know, that's fine, all games are on a time crunch these days, and all games have cut content. It's clear where the developers cut corners, and I'd hazard a guess that the reason for that was so that the Wii U wouldn't go more than 6 months after Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze without a major release. But it is still a little bit hard not to wish for more, you know? I have no idea when the next Mario Kart will come out, but when it does, I hope we get a stronger, more diverse cast. Also, it's been 9 years since retro tracks became a staple. I hope they don't feel constrained to only remaking tracks that haven't already been done, especially when they're overhauling them to this extent. And more than anything, I hope there's more customability. I mean, Mario Kart 8 doesn't even have an options menu. There are a few things you can control in Versus mode. It pales in comparison to the custom ability of Smash Bros. Being able to set the number of racers, or turn individual items on or off, would negate every nitpick I have with the game, and I am flabbergasted that nothing like that has ever been featured. But the developers chose to cut those corners and spend their time focusing on the important things. Item balance, character balance, track design. These are the essential elements to Mario Kart, and they're all polished to a mere sheen. In spite of what amounts to a few minor rough spots, Mario Kart 8 is an incredibly strong game. I bought a Wii U the day it came out, and I've never regretted the purchase. I knew the system would, in time, be worth the investment. I knew that even if it flopped, we'd still get the usual lineup of Nintendo classics. Basically, I bought the system because in my mind, it was guaranteed to reach at least that potential. For the first time since that day, I can finally say that the Wii U has hit that tipping point. The system is no longer worth owning just based on what's going to be in the future. It's worth it because of the massive awesome games that you can play on it right now. No one game can save a system, but Mario Kart 8 is an adrenaline shot in the right direction. Whether the Wii U rises to greatness or becomes a cult classic, one thing is for sure. This is the best Mario Kart has ever been. As of this video, TGC has 564 subscribers. You know, one of the most common comments we get is people saying we deserve more, and if you agree, then hit that button. But if you want to help out, let people know. We gained almost 200 new fans in a single day a few weeks back, because somebody was awesome enough to link a video on Reddit. Either way, thank you for watching, keep geeking, I'll keep critiquing.